right? You have agency, you make your own choices.
Yes.
So that's why I don't understand why people are so mad.
Because what if
you pray, Prophet P. Nelly can say something. All you gotta do is pray about it. You want to do it, then do it. So I'm just
Did
like,
you call him P. Nelly?
P. Nelly, President Nelson.
if we say we don't teach blind obedience, but then we say when doubt comes in, follow the prophet anyway? How is that not a form of teaching blind obedience?
It's still a choice.
See, I think most people that say that, though, honestly, are full of crap. I think 99% of these people that say, well, I've received personal revelation that goes against prophetic revelation, aren't actually ever praying or reading their scriptures or cultivating any kind of measure of spirituality that makes me think they're at such a high echelon of spirituality that they've received conflicting revelation. Oh, yeah, they're out batting the prophet of God.
Okay.
Prophet, well, does the prophet not speak with God himself?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Midnight Strike Through Mormons. I'm your host, Cardinellis. I'm joined in the studio by I did that one wrong already. Kwaku L, as well as our new friends, Zach, Aspen, and Tanner, returning to the studio. And today we're going to speak a little bit on an interesting topic that seems to be cruising through the interwebs. None other than Haney's speech, actually I shouldn't say speech, I'm sorry, talk here, on a living prophet for the modern days, for the latter days. Apparently it's causing quite a stir on Twitter, you said, right, Kwaku? So just tell us what's going on, my man.
Well, first of all, I think it's interesting. I didn't know that Jeffrey Holland had a stunt double, but it's remarkable. He looks just like Holland wouldn't speak, and they're like, "Oh, we gotcha." Yeah. We got a guy who looks like the Walgreens to CVS of Jeffrey R. Holland, like just about the same, a little different. So yeah, people are talking about it though because
what's the controversy, man? Just why are they? What's their beef?
Really, two things. One thing was that he talked about following the prophet, which is not a bad thing, but he did it in a way that assumed, it indirectly assumed infallibility among prophets and didn't give you any. It basically said there's no excuse to not follow the prophet ever. And second, he said,
really, that's what you got?
Well, I'm saying this is what people are taking out of it. Okay?
Oh, the same people that say like the crap about muskets that is not there.
Well, a little different. The second thing is he said that a living prophet is more important than a dead prophet, and not to use the words of dead prophets, to contradict the living prophets. So what this does is it creates a new conversation on what does that mean when you extend it further? What does it mean? Is Nelson more important than Nephi? Was Kimball more important than Joseph Smith? What do these things mean? So I guess we'll now discuss this. And Tanner has some firm opinions, so I can tell he's ringing in his seat.
Okay, yeah. So yeah. Okay, what are you thinking, Tanner?
So my first problem with this this talk was when I was listening to it. It was the Saturday morning session. I was listening to it. I was at work, and he goes, "A prophet is," and I was like, okay, we're getting a definition of a prophet. This is perfect. This is exactly what I need. I need this right now.
Or a description of the action that he's engaged in, like the prophet is mowing the lawn. But okay, keep going.
Yeah, but he said a prophet is someone God has personally prepared, called, corrected, inspired, rebuked, sanctified, and sustained. That is why we are never spiritually at risk in following prophetic counsel. And I 100% agree with the last part, that if it is prophetic counsel, we are not spiritually at risk. However, when he said, he gave us that list of things that qualify somebody as a prophet, I was thinking, that's like most missionaries. Okay. God has called, corrected, inspired, rebuked, sanctified, and sustained almost every single missionary out there right now.
Okay.
And I'm not to be a nitpicker, but he did also miss out on seeing and prophesying.
Okay.
He described a great disciple of Christ, but a prophet and a disciple, there needs to be some differentiation between me and the guy leading the church,
Okay, how much of that, though, is just your standard approach to worldly hierarchies? Because, we don't say that prophets have any different Melchizedek priesthood than the most basic elder in the church does. So there's already this strangely,
them as seers and revelators as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm just like, you know, if you're gonna say this is what a prophet is, I'm not trying to be a nitpicker, but also you're gonna see something.
Wow. So I'm surprised. So you guys didn't like this too much. It sounds like, huh?
Like well, I didn't dislike it. I don't want to be this. It's not. I don't like when we treat general conference like movie reviews. We're sitting back, we're like, you know.
Wow, this is
Emily Bell Freeman was not her best role.
Yeah.
in this Sunday afternoon session. Yeah. But okay, here's what confused me. I'll just say it. I don't care if I get blasted in the comments. What confused me is.
By the way, the guy that's saying he's confused is one wearing the pearls in the studio right now. But I mean, let's get.
Yes. There's actually two of us wearing pearls.
Yeah. Okay. Oh,
I'm not wearing pearls. It's a puka necklace.
Okay, cool.
Oh.
Keep going.
Okay.
Slightly more masculine.
No. Hit it. Keep going.
Puka is the least masculine word. It sounds like
You're wearing pearls. You're wearing grandma's pearls.
Hey, it's all right.
Hey,
I mean,
they're talking about it. Even on Joe Rogan, they're talking about it. So keep going.
So here's the thing. If we say you're never spiritually at risk in following the prophet, to me this says you should always just follow the prophet. Now, here's my issue with that, and I've had an issue with that always being in the church. The first reason is because it assumes infallibility. The minute you tell me all I have to do is just follow what a man says, you're saying that man is infallible. Like, that is an assumption of infallibility.
Well, were they saying that, or were they just saying there's not spiritual risk in it?
What's the difference?
Well, there might be physical risk. Like, who knows? Maybe he's a bad trailblazer. Like Brigham Young was a good one. Maybe there was a bad one.
Like some of those blood clots.
But Cardin, what he did go on to say, the doctrine and principles that we must follow to survive spiritually and endure physically are found in the words of a living prophet. So he did say physically.
Well, yeah, okay, because, you know, Mormons that obey the word of wisdom live on average 14% longer, according to recent studies done on this issue.
Mormons who get the jab have 10 years less.
Yeah,
I'm just so...
I was going to say the jab.
Okay, look, I'll just get this out of here. This actually really kind of surprises me, because usually I'm a little bit more liberal on this kind of thing than like Kwaku and Brad are and stuff. But to me, I kind of feel like this is what happens when those that hate the church get on Twitter and they have things that they hate. One of the things that they hate is the LDS truth claim of having modern prophets. And any chance they can to go after it, they do. And then that cynicism and that nitpicking and that fault finding, where they're trying to show where he actually messed up and says that he's infallible, and they try and say that, oh, you know, he really said something worse than what he really did, then affects it infiltrates into the zeitgeist of even the membership. I watched this talk, and you know what I thought? I thought, great. I wish they would, like, I thought that it was the most basic boilerplate kind of talk out there, where it's just like, look, we got prophets, but the Lord sometimes rebukes them, but they're closer and wiser on certain things than you are, so you should follow them. But there's also personal revelation. Like, it's this is what I feel. Actually, let me put in one sentence. I feel like we're engaged right now in the same argument that we have with evangelicals when they try and tell us that we are a work-based faith because of nitpicking scriptures like the ones in 2nd Nephi, saying, oh, well, there's this one verse, despite all of the other good ones about grace, there's this one verse with a controversial phrase that says, after all you can do. And we're going to purposely misinterpret it and then propagate a smear that you guys don't believe in grace and you only believe in works. And that somehow infiltrates the zeitgeist of even the members, when in reality, everybody knows, just like people walk on two legs.
But we're not hinging the truthfulness of the church based on this talk, and that's what evangelicals do. They say, oh, this is wrong, therefore your book is false. We're not saying, therefore the church is false because of Elder Haney's, a couple sentences. But what I'm saying is, he opened a door of a topic we don't explore in the church. We just wave into the door, and that's it. So when we say, all right, you were never spiritually at risk in following the prophet, that means always follow the prophet. Now, if I can be told to always do something and I can always follow X and I will be okay, that is a claim of infallibility.
That's also
I think the internal logic there is flawed, Quaker, and here's the reason why. He starts out his talk. Look, actually, I'm going to pull it up. just so I don't take the words out of this guy's mouth, okay, I'm going to pass his boomer joke about cartoons. All right. You know what I'm saying? And the white-haired man, who is that? It's a prophet. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to go straight into, let's see right here. Oh, there's a big truck passing by. So we're going to let that go. You know what I'm saying? Right here.
Has personally prepared, called, corrected, inspired, rebuked, sanctified, and sustained.
Okay. He literally defines a prophet as somebody who's been called, sanctified, all that other stuff, but rebuked. You can't inherently say the definition of a prophet insinuates rebuke from God when you do wrong things without their piggybacking automatically into that internal logic that they can screw up just like Jonah did, just like Peter did, just like Paul did, just like James did.
No, I'm with you.
And then get rebuked.
I'm with you on that. But
so you can't be saying the guy that said prophets get rebuked is the same guy that's saying they're infallible.
I am. That's the point. I'm saying if you're going to say both, this is why people are confused and upset. So I get it. No prophet is perfect. And we all understand that prophets are perfect.
They can't understand two things simultaneously. To me, this is such midwit problems.
No. Okay, if
there's grace and there's works. We're saved by grace, but we show our acceptance of Christ through our works, and we show that we, I don't think you not understand scissors.
Okay, this is like saying I'm not. By the way, I'm not dating Aspen, but let's say Aspen, okay. I'm not the perfect boyfriend, but you can always trust me, and you can always, if you follow what I say, it's always going to be okay. That's me saying I'm the perfect boyfriend.
Well, here's the thing, because everything leads back into the church. You have personal revelation, right? You have agency. You make your own choices.
Yes.
So that's why I don't understand why people are so mad.
Because what if
you pray? Prophet P. Nelly can say something. All you got to do is pray about it. You want to do it, then do it. I'm just
Did you call him P. Nelly?
P. Nelly, President Nelson.
P.
No,
Nelly.
but I'm just saying, all you have to do is pray about it. If you feel good about it, then do it, because all of our choices are experiences here on earth are on you.
No, I agree with that.
Else.
I 100% agree with that.
I agree.
You want to follow the prophet, and whatever happens because of that is because of your own choice, not because what the prophet does.
I completely agree.
That's why I'm like, why y'all mad?
No, nobody's mad.
I almost feel like you have to. This talk was so basic and so good. I feel like you have to search out the controversy. It was great. He starts out with a boomer joke. He gets the old people giggling, so they all know that he's one of us. Okay, but
Pardon,
then
I'm gonna quote the Lord. Why is it that you cannot understand my speech, even because you cannot hear my word? Here's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If we claim that you are always doing the right thing by just following a man, you are claiming that man will not ever lead you in the wrong direction, which is a claim of infallibility. It's an always. It's a 100%. If he said, get personal revelation, and if your true personal revelation from the Holy Ghost does not line up with the prophet, then fill in the blank. But we don't get that talk. And the natural question people have is, my personal revelation went against what X leader said. What do? We don't touch it. There's a blank on the paper that nobody has. The Scantron has 6 questions. And it says, these all are bubbled. And this one says, don't bubble, don't X, don't scratch. What do I do with these bubbles? And nobody wants to touch it. Nobody
wants to touch what? Whether personal revelation can trump prophetic revelation?
If your personal revelation goes against prophetic revelation, do you choose your personal revelation?
To me, there is so much arrogance in that. I'll tell you this much right now. Okay. I think something that especially North American members struggle with is the concept that this is a kingdom of heaven. And that the priesthood operates like a kingdom, not like a democracy, not like a bureaucracy, not like a mobocracy. It operates like a kingdom. The king is in charge. Okay. And that rubs us wrong. Okay. Because because we're so used to these separation of powers and these checks and balances and all of these systems meant to keep it from failure that we learn about in civics class. But in a kingdom, it's a kingdom, right? And so I think if you're going to come at the king you better not miss. Okay, so there's a lot of arrogance when you say like, oh, well, my personal revelation. Well, what if it actually goes against what a prophet says? Tell me the instance. Tell me the instance that you actually feel that you were given personal revelation that was in direct conflict with prophetic revelation, that was not a straw man of that prophetic revelation that you saw on the internet.
I already know what's coming. I already know what's coming.
Are you saying, and now is the JAB, the jibby jabby, was that a straw man of what he said? Or was that what you thought he said?
He sent an email to every Mormon in the world saying, please get it. He called it a godsend. He said to
I think he said modern medicine was. I didn't like that either.
I promise you, he called the vaccine specifically.
But that also was not a revelation. That was a press release.
This is what I'm
That's
saying.
what he claimed it was a revelation.
And I had a truth here. I had a problem. Now look, I'm taking 2 steps towards you here, all right? I had a problem with the fact that whatever PR representative wanted to get that information out into the world did it on a letterhead that looked very similar to what happens when we get prophetic revelations. And they said, oh, well, the church membership should have known that it wasn't a church revelation because it didn't go through the channels of the priesthood.
You just created a bureaucrat character that you just made up a whipping boy instead of, I'm just saying, they made it clear they wanted us to get the jab, okay?
It was signed by the first presidency.
Yeah, they had a signed press release.
They wanted us to get that Bill Gates Gatorade. That's what they wanted, okay? They wanted that, okay?
Okay.
So now the question is, people who prayed and said, God does not want me to get this. Okay, so here's the thing. If you have personal revelation and it goes against what the prophet is saying, what do you do? And this is a conversation.
But here's you're falling.
I understand. You don't.
You're
come
falling
at the
into my trap. You're falling into my trap, though. Is right now you're comparing personal revelation, which I believe was revelatory because you sat on your knees and prayed about it, to a press release from the church that was a faux pas, I believe, due to internal politics of the church. That was made to look like a revelation when it wasn't. So again, when have you had a personal revelation?
I don't think so. I mean, they
it was not given out
times.
No, it was not given through the proper priest. Sorry, I shouldn't say proper. That makes it sound like I'm nitpicking. But it wasn't released through the revelations are always released through the priesthood body. They always come down from the prophet, then they go to the general authorities, and the general authorities disseminate them.
So let's take that one step further then. If a prophet is giving counsel, is it as valid as a counsel if he says, "Thus saith the Lord"?
Repeat that question because I want to make sure that I totally understand it.
So we have the prophet of the church. Okay. Let's say they release something as a press release. Okay, now we have video, we have text, we have press release, we have like 6-7 different ways of saying please get this. Okay. In addition to make the missionaries get it. In addition to have the church schools say, get this thing if you want to take classes. Just kidding. You don't have to take it because some troublemakers in Provo made that hard to happen. I don't want to, take responsibility. But, okay, it was a number of different avenues. Get the Fauci ouchie. So now, I don't think it's fair to say that it was just a press release. They communicated this thing in words and in action. Yeah.
There's
to tap in for a second.
Go for it, bro.
I distinctly remember, I think it was the general conference that happened, was it spring? Or it was spring or fall, but I don't know. I remember distinctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I might have a bad memory, but I feel like the prophet, he's like, I encourage you all to go get the vaccine. Like he said that verbatim.
He didn't say do it. He urged.
He called it a godsend.
Urge, encourage, but
well, no, he said modern medicine and vaccinations. I'm going to pull up the quote
right now. Okay, and if I'm right, then we get to do one more crazy esoteric podcast.
Okay, fine. What is this going to be? I feel like there's no more left, but okay, we'll do it. You can pull it up. All I'm saying, bro, is that this surprises me because I looked. I mean, am I wrong, Aspen? Like here, what did you think? What was your bare bones assessment of this talk? What'd you think? You saw it.
About the talk? Like, all I remember was a plastic water bottle and, like, following the prophet. Like, I didn't really... There wasn't anything that jumped out.
While he's looking it up, Kwaku, this is what you got to listen to. These were the notes that I wrote when I was doing pre-production investigation in this, all right? I wrote, boomer joke. I thought it was a cute boomer joke. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Then I really liked what he said about this, and I feel to a certain extent, I think you might be falling into this trap. Okay? You got to remember, dude, it's like the charge of the light brigade. All right? So here we go.
Revelation that there's a living prophet on the earth changes everything.
So he said, having personal revelation that there's a living prophet on the earth changes everything. Okay. How does it change it, Haney? How does it change it, my man?
It causes one to be uninterested in the debate about when is a prophet speaking as a prophet, or whether one is ever justified in selective rejection of prophetic counsel.
Oh, so here's the question. Maybe if you're, more righteous, you would be uninterested in whether or not Russell M. Nelson was speaking as a prophet in a press release and would have gotten the ouchie Fauci.
I feel like that makes
That's
no
pretty bad. That's a pretty bad statement to make.
Totally just kidding.
So I have two, okay? I'm going to pull up right now. So not a fake, not a screenshot, not a quote. The actual tweet from the prophet.
Okay, show it to me. This is a good discussion point. And by the way, I really think part of the reason I've said this multiple times on other programs too, because this is a very nuanced opinion, but I have to be very consistent with it. I think whoever allowed the decision of that release 9 months into the whole controversy that starts with a P and rhymes with plandemic, okay, that during that time, I thought it was poorly timed and not well written and easily confused with prophetic revelation in a way that caused a lot of division, not just in my ward, in my parents' ward, in my friends' wards.
Just saying.
And it was bad. And they're paying the consequences. The fact that we're having this podcast and I got 3 Gen Zers who are doubting whether or not they can follow the prophet based on recent history with the ouchie Fauci, that shows they're
because
paying
all
a
the
price.
dimes in Provo are going to be in now. Okay, that's not true. Okay, so one, this is the prophet's tweet. Wendy and I were vaccinated today against COVID-19. We are thankful for the countless individuals who performed the work required to make this possible. We have prayed for this literal godsend. Receiving the vaccine is part of our personal effort to be good global citizens. And he tweeted it with a photo of him getting that.
Yeah, that's a tweet. So he's saying he thought it was a godsend. And in the early days, when they were doing
that's not modern medicine.
Warp Speed, all of the conservatives were all about the Trump vaccine. It was the liberals saying they weren't going to take it because it was the Trump vaccine.
Well, I wasn't. I'm not on either train, and I didn't.
Yeah,
whatever.
so I think you got an old doctor who thinks it's a godsend that they developed a disease for a pandemic. To me, that's so boilerplate.
Come on, bro. Look, even this right here. Remember the LDS coloring page they put on the Gospel Library app? Said, "I can be brave," of the little kid holding the stuffed animal getting in the back. Do you remember that when that came out? Ooh. And the pushback was so bad.
That's a bad one.
The church took it off Gospel Library. Like, this is pretty bad, isn't it?
Okay.
I mean, come on.
I don't have a response to that one.
Okay, so he called the vaccine a godsend. Said, it's part of the effort to be good global citizens. Okay, and you got the press relief. You got the missionaries. Get it. BYU students get it. Church staff get it. But all bishops, please get. It's like we can't be honest here and say that they did not tell us to get that jab. They told us 900 different ways, and the firmest way we know is because there is audio right now on YouTube of a state conference in which Elder Rasband is saying, "I don't understand why the members of the church aren't getting it. We made it clear. You need to get it." And he's talking about how upset he is that the members aren't getting it because he's like, we told them all to get it.
So is that your frustration, Tanner and Zach and Aspen? Is this like a reaction to the jibby jabby that all of Twitter is getting angry about this talk?
But people would be mad if he didn't. I feel like people are going to be mad if he made a statement, if he didn't make a statement. Like people are going to say, oh, he's hiding from it if he doesn't make a statement, especially because he's a doctor. He has all that stuff. Like, I worked in healthcare. I had to get it if I wanted to keep my job, right?
No, look, and I'm not on board with the people that are just like always wanting to make the prophet look bad. I don't like those are not my people. But I am saying we this is a valid actual conversation happening in the church.
He did not tell. He urged. He did not tell you to do nothing. He never tells you to do anything.
What are you talking about? What?
I don't even know.
we just. What are you talking about? He doesn't. That's his job. He's a prophet. You follow the prophet.
Yeah, he gives us counsel. He does not tell us to do anything.
Well, I think
Tells us
what
to do a
she's
lot.
trying to say.
difference
She's trying to say that it's very rare he makes a direct order. Generally,
Yeah, he
gives
literally
guidelines.
would never be like,
Well, they never give orders. They're not politicians or the military.
No, yeah, Brigham Young said, "Go west, all of you now." You know what I'm
Well, he also
saying?
said some
Like,
other
He'll set some
concrete
other. I
things that
wouldn't
were
use him
orders.
as the example.
look, because men were men back then. You know what I'm saying? No,
I wouldn't use. Okay, but I don't. And maybe this is the nuance I'm happy we're getting in, because ex-Mormons have these conversations and Mormons don't, and then Mormons fall out of the church because the ex-Mos are actually having the deep convos and we refuse to, except for Patrick
they're not
Q.
having
Mason.
deep convos. They're recycling 1838 stereotypes in the same intellectual midwit dryer that they've been circling in for 150 years.
The turn is there is nuance that we should be discussing in the church.
So we're
that we don't.
discussing it.
Great.
You're apostate. I'm not. You know what I said? No, I'm totally just kidding, bro. Look, if you're trying to suggest that the mishandling of the Fauci ouchie is making it so that people have second thoughts about boilerplate 11-minute talks on the role and the beauty of having a modern prophet, I'm all with you. I think it was mishandled, and I can understand why a reasonable layman would say, hey, wait a second, but what about when you said get the Fauci ouchie, and that turned out being really bad.
Ouchie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I get that. I think that's a fair argument.
okay, but I don't think you're getting what I'm saying. This is why I keep hitting this.
Okay, so say it in one sentence. What am I not getting?
If we recognize that in the past 3 years, church leadership has been wrong about a subject, then to have a talk that says you're never spiritually at risk and following the prophet, then what do we do with those people who were right? They were right when they said I should not get it because it's a bad thing. It is going to hurt, okay?
Yeah, it wasn't a temple recommend question, bro.
I know, but we're moving the goalposts. I'm just saying, what do we do? What do you do when you're literally confronted with, God has told me to do the opposite of what the prophet says? What do you do? Fill in the blank.
Okay, let's talk about it then. What do you do? This whole little argument started because I said, you show me a time when you have actually had personal revelation that's flown in the face
and we
of
gave you a
prophetic
beautiful
counsel.
Example, and everyone's like, that's a pretty good point.
And then, okay, so fine.
I reached back into Orson Pratt's diary.
I would say I stand corrected, but I refuse to admit that you ever did something to correct me.
That's
so
fine.
instead,
I'm the same way.
Instead, I will
some pearls. You might be right.
Okay, so anyway, so continue. As you were saying, continue.
Okay, here's my opinion that will get me canceled. If all we needed was to just follow a man, we wouldn't need the Holy Spirit.
But you don't think that I was saying, because we have so many talks about personal revelation. We always sustain people. We wouldn't sustain people.
I get it. I understand.
Okay.
But we don't. Okay. Here's the talks on personal revelation. Here are the talks on following the prophet. Okay. And we give these talks. And then eventually we go, no, don't talk about it. Wait, but when they cross, what about? No, don't talk about it. If your personal revelation goes against what the prophet says, then you should fill in the blank.
Personally, I would love to hear President Nelson actually speak on this subject. I think he would be the perfect person to have speak on this subject about what to do if we feel as if the things that he has taught, the things that he has told us to do, were incorrect. I would love to hear what he actually thought.
I feel like they had, I can't remember what session it was, but I really, really loved it, how about people are not perfect, but gospel doctrine and principles. So I feel like they already have.
I mean, we're not debating that. Like, that's totally... But what we're saying is, I do not think he is a sinless, perfect man. I don't think any man is except for Jesus Christ.
Right.
But...
This is a good case study. You have brought up a very good case study.
If you're going to tell me the prophet will never lead the church astray and you're never at risk to follow him, and then I follow him and get a blood clot and pass out on the basketball court because of the then I was at risk in following the prophet. So my cousin who has the revelation that says don't get it, it's going to hurt you. That guy was right and I was wrong. So what do you do?
So I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Whose phone is going?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Okay.
Okay.
You know how I said part of the reason why I don't really entertain too many of these arguments, or I don't think they hold too much water. This might be a personality type thing, all right? But if you view it as a kingdom, okay, I'm not convinced that if I were to operate on my own understanding instead of the prophet's understanding and counsel 100% of the time, that I would do better than if I operated under his counsel and with his guidance 100% of the time. Let me finish. I'm convinced that if I were just to rely on unto my own understanding, as the scriptures say, because constantly we're always trying to rule ourselves instead of let the Lord rule us, right? Or the Lord through his prophets and his scriptures rule us. I'm convinced that I would bat 250 if I were left unto my own decision making. But that if I were to 100% submit to the Lord's prophet and his church, I'd probably bat, let's just say the vax was an error of the past 3 years. And now Russell M. Nelson is down to 950 batting average. That's still triple, quadruple what I would bat by myself. And to me, fulfills this man's talk saying there is spiritual security and physical endurance, or whatever his exact words were, in following the prophet. And I'm not convinced that I have such good wisdom all the time that when I come at the king, I wouldn't miss once.
Look,
does that make sense?
I understand exactly what you're saying. You're better. Okay. And the logic is you're better off following the prophet than just following, your own. However,
we know he can't be perfect, so he's not batting 1,000.
No. Okay. It's fair.
Okay.
So what you're saying then means just always follow the prophet.
I wouldn't say blindly.
Well, okay. Well,
because then you're not following the prophet, because even the prophet has said, go home and pray daily. Okay. I'm not convinced that somebody.
But your answer just put us back to the initial question. So when we say
yes, because there's a duality of two simultaneous truths. There is a truth that we live in a church that says there are modern prophets, but you also must follow the ancient prophets. Oh, wait, but what if they appear to be saying something different? Oh, you might actually have to pray. Oh, wait, tithing. It gets confusing, especially in America, when there's capital gains and there's income tax and there's property tax and there's fuel tax and there's petroleum tax and there's all the 15 million different taxes. How much money did I actually make? What is my increase? Meanwhile, the tribal dude that raises chickens in some other continent thinks, oh, I had 10 chickens. I'm going to give one to the church. We don't have that luxury. So guess what? In order to fulfill the commandment, we have to invoke both personal revelation, okay, and prophetic counsel simultaneously.
Yes.
So just because a guy
but
gives
when they come at the crossroads, Gordon, that's what we're saying. When they come at the crossroads,
everything operates.
Fill in the blank when they come at the crossroads.
Everything operates.
Can I tap in here?
Everything operates in a duality, Kwaku. Grace and works, crime and punishment, mercy and justice.
I can't unvaccinate myself, brother. What do you mean? No. I mean, certain things, certain times it will come to. Orson Pratt goes into Brigham Young's office, historical thing, says, Adam is not God, you are wrong. Okay? He goes in front of the Utah legislator and he says, these people aren't cursed. You're wrong. Utah cannot be a slave territory.
That's true.
You're wrong. Okay?
That's true,
That
dog.
was not we can have dual. So the will be fine in the temple, but the others can work on the field. That's not how it did it, okay? All right? So sometimes there is no both at the same time. Sometimes you're at a crossroads. Which brings
we gotta let Zach talk too, because I said
one last thing. This podcast is a perfect case study of the point I was making. As Mormons, we see it right here.
Are you wearing pants, Kwaku? It looks like you don't.
That was almost bad.
Yeah, that was
It
like,
looks like
I was
the
like,
whole Zoom thing where
are you in a-
shirt on, no
Back in
pants.
COVID days.
are you in a
Very long
dress,
shirt.
bro?
Okay.
Here's
what I'm saying.
And then we got to cut to Zach because I made a joke.
This podcast
saying
is the perfect case study of when I said, as Latter-day Saints, we say follow the prophet and we say seek personal revelation. But what happens when your personal revelation goes against what the prophet says? Fill in the blank. And Carden, every time you've talked, you have done a beautiful job illustrating up until then, and then when you get to the fill in the blank, you don't fill in the blank.
I would say my default when in doubt, and I was in serious doubt, would be to follow the prophet. And there's actually, and I'm a little bit hypocritical against myself, and I am calling myself out, and I'm telling you right now something I'm going through. On this show, we have spoken a lot about that right there, our name. When Christensen came out and said, Russell M. Nelson first came out and said we should restrict the use of the word Mormons, right? And he reiterated that. By that time, I'd already started my show, made all the logos. It was nowhere in cyberspace, you know what I'm saying? But the church hadn't really picked it up, right? And so it was kind of this nebulous thing where we knew in our personal speech we should avoid it, but they hadn't really gone after like the podcasts and the blogs and so on and so forth until Christensen gets up and he said, hey, look, faithful podcasts will avoid the use of the word Mormon. Well, that actually has caused a lot of angst in me because I'm like, I don't want to leave Mormon just to all the anti-people in cyberspace. So now search engine optimization goes completely to our haters and those that hate us. At the same token, I want to, quote, follow the prophet, okay, or at least follow the apostles. So I talked to my bishop about it, talked to my stake president about it. I talked to, I prayed about it a lot. And that's where we came up with this kind of fun middle ground of midnight strike through Mormons where, okay, we don't call ourselves midnight Mormons, we're midnight strike through Mormons, which is kind of a funny joke. But I always thought a new name would come along. And even my bishop said that. He said, if you really feel that it's not appropriate, he's like, I'm all for, limiting how we call ourselves Mormons instead of members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But I don't think the prophet's necessarily telling you have to burn your podcast to the ground and start all over from scratch. And he said, I'm sure that the right name when it's time to get named will come. And whenever I prayed about what should we be called, I had a bigger stupor of thought about our new names than I did about getting rid of the old one. And I was going to call ourselves Christ or Chaos, but then we get into the TITS problem with This Is the Show. Remember all the boomers said, oh no, it's not. It's TIS because the T is silent. I said, that's not what the internet's going to say, bro. If you name our show, This Is the Show, they're going to call it. And sure enough, what were they calling it? What is Christ or Chaos? COC. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to be the director, and okay, you know what I'm saying?
But you wouldn't be the first.
Yeah. So anyway, at the end of the day, it's just like I'm still working out in this show and the name of this show. I haven't had that revelatory aha moment where the new name has come to me, but I do feel to a certain extent under prophetic direction to limit the use and if not excise the name Mormon from my podcast. So that's where the strike through comes from. And now I do kind of feel like I'm in this limbo area where I have that prophetic conflict with that personal revelation. And unless I'm Steve Young, the NFL quarterback that's getting away with winning Super Bowls by playing on Sunday, I think unless you're that level, you better just not play football on Sunday. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I still think we're going around the chalkboard.